So Mataji, as a regular student, is in our Zoom call.
Sorry, yes, Madhusudhan, say that again, please.
I'm saying Mataji, we have to start our session. Regular students so आ गए हैं जो हमेशा आते हैं.
Okay, we will start. Going to start displaying. हम थोड़ा पीछे जाएंगे from what we did, so then we can do a recap as well. Okay, Hare Krishna, everyone. Hope everybody is doing well. And here we are in our second chapter. Right? Do you all remember what we did last week on Monday? We are reading these books, right? Srila Prabhupada's books. So have I shared with you all the books that we have? Srila Prabhupada's books, and then, you know, they're placed in a very nice order to read. And that's what we are doing, right? Every Monday, we're reading those books slowly by slowly and going through what Prabhupada has elaborated on specific topics in nutshell for all these books, which are based off what? Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and Chaitanya Charitamrita. These are the three main scriptures. And all these books that we are reading, they are based off on different topics, snippets from these in a short and nutshell. And then Prabhupada has presented these in these books that we are reading now. Okay, so before we start, we will say our quick pranam prayers, mantras, and then we will do a quick recap from what we did 2 weeks back, the first chapter, and then a little bit quick recap of the second chapter, so far what we have done, and then we'll continue reading from the middle half of the chapter. Okay. Okay. Just give me 1 minute. I'm going to reply to this real quick. Okay. Sorry about that. So we'll start with our prayers. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Ti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so quick recap from the first chapter. Who remembers? Do you all remember what we read? What was the topic, at least, from the first chapter? About the happiness. Do you all remember? The happiness, how temporary, how we all are looking for happiness in some sense or other, right? Everybody. They're doing things all day, all life, on and on, working hard, putting endeavors in search of what? One thing, and that is to be happy. So then in that topic, in that first chapter, we were reading about that. And then now, by the time we read, we saw how Prabhupada was explaining in that chapter that happiness are two kinds, right? One is external, which we are seeing in external things, which we are all going behind most of our lives, right? And another happiness is something internal, which is not from this external things or material things, but internally within, with our bonding, with our consciousness, with our connection with the bond of love to Krishna and to the devotees, and in that way establishing that bonds of love and bhava and prema and the inner self, which are transcendental to all these material things, right? So Prabhupada had given us examples of what those temporary happiness look like, and how eventually we go behind them. It's just a matter of time that all those things will be taken away from us. So is that really point in putting so much effort in just those achieving those temporary things in our life? Rather, relishing that bond that we have with Krishna, and in connect and to others as well in connection to Krishna, which is our cause of the ultimate happiness. So that was the topic, and on the first chapter. How did that lead to the second chapter? What we did last week? What we read last week was, if you remember, I'm going to scroll up a little bit and come back here to this verse, Janma Karma Cha Me Divyam. So in the first chapter, the way of chanting and knowing Krishna. So, we concluded in that chapter that our connection to Lord Krishna is, the ultimate happiness, will bring us the ultimate happiness, Krishna consciousness. So, having understood that we are this temporary body, what do we do, right? We are in this temporary body. What do we do? So we have to get out of it. And in this second chapter, in the first part, we read what? How Krishna is, explaining to us in the very beginning, like, this temporary nature of the body. It's just a matter of time that we have to give up all of these things. What to say of other things that we possess, but even this body we have to give up, right? So what would be our next destination then? Based on the consciousness, we will get another body, right? So we read a few shlokas from that second chapter in this. And then, we moved on to the topic where Krishna is explaining, besides this temporary nature, Krishna is explaining how his abode is the permanent nature, or of the permanent nature, is the eternal abode, right? Where Krishna is explaining Janma Karma Cha Me Divyam Yo Veti Tattvata Tyaktva Deham Punarjanma Nayeti Mamiti. So Arjuna, that knowing that my transcendental nature of my appearance and activities, one does not upon leaving the body take birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, right? So I think we'll continue from here, because this will gradually lead us to what we should be doing, understanding that we are, understanding that we are in search, seeking happiness. And that's natural for Jiva to seek the happiness. It's natural for Jiva to be, to live for long, because by nature, Jiva is eternal, right? He doesn't like to die. So he's seeking for that. We all don't know, like, when we even talk about death, it is so disappointing. We don't even want to talk about it. Why? Because by nature, Jiva is eternal, right? So that eternal life, this will lead us into, that consciousness where, we are so, we attain that purity in ourselves, and we can attain Lord Krishna's permanent abode. That's what Krishna is talking about in this verse. So we'll continue reading from here. So we just read the shloka, and the translation goes like this: one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. The mission for which Krishna appears in is here further explained. When he comes with some mission, there is some activities, of course. There are some philosophers who do not believe that God comes as an incarnation. They say, why should God come in this rotten world? But from Bhagavad Gita, we understand otherwise. We should always remember that we read Bhagavad Gita as a scripture, and whatever is spoken in Bhagavad Gita must be accepted. Otherwise, there is no reason of reading it. In Gita, Krishna says that he comes as an incarnation with a mission. And along with his mission, there are some activities. We can see, for example, that Krishna is active as a chariot driver for Arjuna and engages in so many activities in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Just as when there is a war, one person or nation may side with another person or nation and show partially Lord Krishna on the battlefield, shows some partiality and side with Arjuna. Actually, Krishna is not partial to anyone, but externally it appears that he is partial. This partiality, however, should not be accepted in the ordinary sense. So, what is this saying? That we know that we know about this war that happened, right? Mahabharata. We've all seen we know the story, or at least seen some kind of series on it, right? So in that war, we know that Krishna was by the side of Arjuna. So does that mean, Prabhupada is explaining here, then does that mean Krishna was not on the side of, like he did not take the side of Duryodhan in any aspect? Like, is he partial? So Prabhupada is bringing up the point that no, there is something even beyond from what we see here, one side and second side. For Krishna, everybody is equal. All the jivas, everybody is part and parcel of Krishna. So in a sense, he's our eternal father to everyone, to every being that exists. So why would he take one side of one person and not take? In a way, even being on Arjuna's side, Krishna is still siding to Duryodhana in a way that he actually, he's trying to put end to some bad reactions in future that Duryodhana would be facing because of his acts. Isn't that so? So, and externally it just appears that Krishna is siding Arjuna. So here Prabhupada wants us to understand the transcendental nature, where being in the material world, we have this differentiations. We see this is mine, this is other person's, or we have that that vision to distinct, right? Or our mind, or to say our mind would constantly accept or reject. But in transcendental world, everything is absolute. And from that aspect, if you see, Bhagavad Gita also teaches us samadarshana, value of samadar, equal vision, right? So for Krishna, everybody is equal. So here Prabhupada is just wanting us to understand this transcendental nature of the spiritual world. In this verse, Krishna also points out that his descent into the material world is transcendental. The word divyam means transcendental. His activities are not in any way ordinary. Even today in India, at the end of August, the people are accustomed to celebrate Krishna's birthday, regardless of the sect, just as the Western world, Jesus Christ's birthday is celebrated at Christmas. Krishna's birthday is called Janmashtami. And in this verse, Krishna uses the word Janma in reference to my birth, because there is birth. There are some activities. Krishna's birth and activities are transcendental, which means they are not like the ordinary birth and activities. One may ask, how is it that his activities are transcendental? is he born. He takes part in the battle with Arjuna. He is a father by the name of, he has a father by the name of Vasudev and a mother, Devaki, and the family. So we are seeing, right, why Prabhupada wants us to understand this transcendental nature? Because he wants us to understand the eternal happiness and eternity that is associated with this transcendental nature. And that's why Prabhupada is trying to explain this to here with the words that Krishna has himself spoken about himself. He's saying that one who understands this transcendental nature, which is not ordinary. I mean, it looks like Krishna, Lord Krishna is taking birth. He has a mother, father, Vasudeva and Devaki, right? But really, if we see with that, if we get that vision from with the mercy of our gurus and acharyas, if we understand that transcendental nature of these were activities were not ordinary what he was doing. So if we just, even by knowing Krishna, so this chapter is just focusing on two aspects. One is knowing Krishna, because to establish that bond, that bond of happiness, that that which would give us happiness, or bond of love, we need to know someone. And how do we know someone? By if they Krishna, at least about we can know someone if they tell us about themselves, right? How would we cannot just speculate, oh, this is how it is, this is how it is, right? But if they tell us, and here Lord Krishna himself is telling about himself, right? And then he's saying that my world is eternal, where my abode is eternal, it's transcendental, my nature is transcendental, my activities that I do, those are transcendental. So here Lord Krishna is revealing about himself, all this. And by knowing that, and if we make an endeavor to re-establish actually, because our connection to Lord Krishna is permanent, it is always there. And when we re-establish that connection which we have lost, which we have forgotten, and that if we re-establish that, that's the only way we can be eternally happy. So you're seeing this connection, right? Are you seeing this connection, what we are trying to talk through and understand in this chapter? Okay, so we'll read. This means that he becomes a liberated soul. He goes to the eternal spiritual world and attains his constitutional position full of bliss. You see, here Krishna is saying that when one knows the Krishna's birth and activities in truth, the result is Tyaktva deham punarjanma. He will not take birth again. Naeti, mameti, will come to me. Oh Arjuna, he's telling this to Arjuna. So how is it explained? When he leaves the material body, he will not take birth again and directly go to Krishna. This means, what does this mean? This means that he becomes a liberated soul. He goes back to the eternal spiritual world and attains his constitutional position, full of bliss. Right? Full of bliss. Here, sometimes we are happy, sometimes we are sad, sometimes we are sick, sometimes we are okay, sometimes we have so much homework to do, right? But this is our constitutional position, is to be in full bliss, knowledge and eternity, full of bliss, knowledge and eternity. Means he doesn't have to deal with this temporary body. All this can be obtained simply by knowing in truth the transcendental nature of Krishna's birth and activities. Ordinarily, when one quits the body, he has to take up another body. He lives, the lives of the living entities are going on simply due to the living entities changing dress from one body to another, transmigration of the soul. According to the work of the living entity at present moment, we may think that this material body is our actual body, but it is like a dress. In reality, we do not have the actual body. um, in a reality, we do have the actual body, which is the spiritual body. This material body is superficial compared to the real spiritual body of the living entity. When this material body becomes old and worn out, or when it is rendered useless by some accident, we put it aside and we might put aside a soil, or just like how we put something that is useless, right? We put that aside. So that's what happens, right? That's what Prabhupada is explaining here. When it is rendered useless by some accident, we put it aside as we might put aside a soiled or ruined suit and take up another material body. And Krishna explains that in Bhagavad Gita, right? By saying what? Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya. Vasamsi means the vastra, like the cloth. And how do we, jirnani means old. How we leave the old cloths? We just change it, right? Navani grihani. Navani means new. Grihani means to accept. Naroparani. Tatha sharirani. Just like that, we leave this old body when it gets old, and then we go on to the new body. And then again, this cycle continues, right? Again, we go behind this temporary things, looking for happiness. And then again, we have to face so many challenges in the life, sadness, and all that comes in along with it, just in search of happiness and doing all the endeavors and chores and everything. And that goes on again and again and again and again, right? But that doesn't come to an end until we realize that we are not the material beings, we are the spiritual beings. We don't have to go through this birth and death. We are eternally associated with Krishna. We have an eternal bond with Krishna, and that can give us the ultimate happiness. So are you all following, right? As a person puts on new garments, giving up the old one, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. In the beginning of the body, the body is the size of a pea. Then it grows to become a baby, then a child, then a young boy, a youth grown man, and the old man. And then finally it becomes useless. The living entity changes into another body. The body is therefore always changing, and death is simply the ultimate change of the present body. Then the next shloka is explaining here. These are all shlokas from second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Dehino yasmin yatha dehe kaumaram yaumanam jara tatha dehantara prapti dhiras tatra namuhyate. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from the boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body. And a sober person is not bewildered by such a change. Okay, who wants to read the next one here? Although the body is changing. Let's see. Anybody would like to read? Okay, I see Mihika, you have your hands up.
Although the body is changing, the dweller within the body remains the same. Although the boy grows into manhood, the living entity within the body is not changed. It is not that the self who was there as a boy has gone away. Medical science agrees that at every moment the material body is changing. Just as living entities are not bewildered by this, an enlightened man is not bewildered when the body undergoes its ultimate change at death. But a person who does not understand things as they are laments. In the material condition, we are simply changing bodies all the time. That is our disease. It is not that we always change a human body. Maybe change to an animal body or a demigod body depending on our activities. According to Padma Puran, there are 8,400,000 species of life. We can take of any of them at death, but Krishna promises that one who knows his birth and activities in truth is freed from this cycle of transmigration.
Very nice. Thanks, Mika. So what do you understand? What do we understand by here? When we are changing the body, it doesn't, the point here is, it doesn't have to be a human being all the time. Right now we have human bodies, right? But you know that there are even higher beings than human beings. Do we know that? See, we see animals all around us, right? We see dogs and cats and horses and all other animals, elephants, right? Aquatics, birds, right? Human beings are definitely higher species, right? Amongst all these animal species and aquatics and birds, right? So similarly, there are higher beings than even human beings, which is like siddhas, which are the rishis, munis, devatas, all these beings are real, have even more power than human beings. So what is happening is, just being in this material world, everybody, death is imminent, right? We have, no matter what person, if they come to the body, they have to at some point leave the body and go on to the next. So that's what is happening over and over. And there are, according to Padma Puran, 8.4 million species, 8,400,000 species of life, different animals, aquatics, birds, all these are there, and even higher human beings, and then higher than even human beings. And all this, we just keep revolving into from one form to another, to another, to another species, to another. And this goes on and on. But what are we trying to achieve here? With living all those different lives, what are we trying to achieve? Have we asked that question ever to ourselves, or has that thought ever come to, why do I have to go through that? I mean, if just ask that question, then we see so many, animals that are just on the street outside, or, we see so many birds out there. Why do they have to be living like that? It's hot, it's cold, it's rainy. Do they ask that question? But when we come into the human body, we have that intelligence to ask that question. So, how one understands Krishna's birth in activities in truth. Here, Krishna is trying to explain that we can, break this cycle of changing these bodies over and over if we understand our eternal position. And if we are, how do we understand our eternal position? Knowing where we came from. And how do we know where we came from? We have to know the source, where we came from. And what is that source? Lord Krishna is saying himself, Aham Bija Prajapita. I am the seed-giving father. All this are my part and parcel. So he's the eternal source of everything that exists. And Krishna is saying, by knowing that, by re-establishing that connection, by purifying yourself, that's how you can attain that eternal position back. How one can understand Krishna's birth and activities in truth? This is explained in 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Bhakta mam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tattvata tato mam tattvato vyatva vishayate tat atmana taram. One can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by the devotional service. And when one is fully conscious of me By such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. Okay, so one more paragraph. Who would like to read? Let's see. Manohar, you want to read?
Yes, Mataji.
Yeah, go ahead.
Here again the word tatvata in truth is used. One can understand the science in truth by becoming a devotee. He who is not a devotee, who does not strive for Krishna consciousness, cannot understand. At the beginning of the fourth chapter also Krishna tells Arjuna, Gita 4.3, that he is explaining this ancient science of yoga to him because Arjuna is my devotee and my friend. For one who simply makes an academic study of the Bhagavad Gita, the science of Krishna remains a mystery. The Bhagavad Gita is not a book that one can just purchase from a bookstore and understand by scholarship alone. Arjuna was not a great scholar, or a Vedantist, nor a philosopher, nor a Brahmana, nor a renunciant. He was a family and military man, but still Krishna elected him to be the recipient of the Bhagavad Gita and first authority in the disciplic succession. Why? Because you are my devotee. That is the qualification to understand the Bhagavad Gita as it is, and Krishna as he is one must become Krishna conscious.
Very nice. Thanks, Manohar. So you're following, right? What Krishna, Lord Krishna is saying and what Prabhupada is trying to explain here. Lord Krishna said that one who knows or one can understand me only by the devotional service. That means if we try to, revive that bond that we have with Krishna, by what? How do we revive that, our relationship back to Krishna? By serving Lord Krishna, right? Because we are meant to serve Lord Krishna. And by re-establishing that connection back, we can understand him in full consciousness. By our devotion, by our love. Devotion means the love that we would have. And only then we can enter into the kingdom of God. And Prabhupada is explaining here in the from the purport of that verse that Arjuna was not a Brahmana, right? He was not a renunciate. He was just a family man, just like you. We all have families, right? But why then Arjuna was chosen to be the recipient of Bhagavad Gita? Because why did Krishna reveal everything to Arjuna? Because he was a devotee, because he had that devotion for Lord Krishna. He wanted to reestablish that connection back to him. He understood Lord Krishna. He was always a well-wisher when Krishna was around, and he was very surrendered to Krishna. And when Arjuna, he says that, right, in the second chapter, we've read that shloka so many times, the seventh one from second chapter, when he says that I surrender unto you, please instruct me. And, when we establish that connection back, only then he became qualified to become the recipient of knowing things as it is, how Krishna is explaining. So connecting back to Lord Krishna. And how do we do that? And what is Krishna? And so Prabhupada is explaining how do we re-establish our connection back? With our consciousness. And what is this consciousness? So Prabhupada is explaining here. And what is Krishna consciousness? That is the process of cleansing the dust from the mirror of the mind through the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So how do we know Krishna? By understanding his activities, by establishing the connection. And once we surrender and once we, we make that endeavor to reestablish the connection back, we have to cleanse ourselves first, cleansing our heart. And that becomes why, through what? Through the chanting of this Mahamantra that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has brought in this world. Golokera Prema Dhana, Harinam Sankirtan. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu brings that eternal love here in this material world through the medium of chanting the Mahamantra. By chanting this mantra and by hearing Bhagavad Gita, we can gradually attain Krishna consciousness. Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam. Krishna is always present in our hearts. The individual soul and the super soul are both sitting in the tree of the body. The individual soul, Jiva, is eating the fruits of the tree. The super soul, Paramatma, is witnessing as the individual soul begins the process of devotional service and gradually begins to develop his Krishna consciousness. The super soul who is seated within begins to help him dust all the impurities from the mind, from the mirror of the mind. Krishna is a friend to all saintly persons, and the attempt to become Krishna conscious is a saintly endeavor. Shravanam Kirtanam. Shravanam means what? Listening. And Kirtanam means telling others about the glories of Lord Krishna. It could be anything. It could be by words that you read from Bhagavad Gita, or you share something about Krishna consciousness with someone. It could be chanting the name of the Lord Krishna, glorifying Lord Krishna. It could be doing the japa. That's also Kirtanam, because you're in a way, you're just glorifying Lord Krishna. By chanting and hearing, one can come to understand the science of Krishna and thereby understand Krishna. And upon understanding Krishna, one can, even at the moment of death, go immediately to the abode of the spiritual world. This spiritual world is described in Bhagavad Gita as, okay, so we're going to read this verse. How is the spiritual world? Na tat bhashyate suryo na shashanko na pavaka yat katva na nivartante tadhama paramam mama. That supreme abode of mine is not illuminated by sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never returns to this material world. So question here, why is Lord, and this shloka is in 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 15.6. Why is Lord Krishna saying that one who reaches there never wants to return to the material world or never returns to the material world? Don't we have everything nice here? Everything is there. We have house, we have cars, we have schools, and we have stuff to do. Why is Lord Krishna saying that one who reaches to that eternal abode, which is not illuminated by sun? If we don't have sun, what happens in the night? There's dark everywhere. The lights that we have in the house, what is that manifested from? Or what is that created from? In a way, it is also created from the sunlight, from some source of sunlight. So if there was no sun, how is this material world? Complete dark. But in spiritual world, is it like that? Is there no light, or is there sun needed in the spiritual world to light up the? No, Lord Krishna is saying that the abode of mine is not illuminated by sun or moon, nor by fire, nor by electricity. It is self-illuminating. Those who reach it never returns in this material world. So the question is still there. Why Lord Krishna is saying that one who reaches there would never want to return here? If you go to some place which is very nice, so you want to come back, that's the very simple meaning what Lord Krishna is saying here. So does that mean is very nice means you're going to be very happy there? So you see the connection again back to our eternal happiness that we are seeking. All of us are seeking. So here, Lord Krishna is explaining his own abode, which is full of bliss. This material world is always dark, isn't it? Therefore, we require sun, moon, electricity. The Vedas enjoin us not to remain in this darkness, but to transfer ourselves to the world of illumination, the spiritual world. The word darkness has twofold meanings. It not only means without light, but also means in ignorance. The Supreme Lord has manifold energies. It is not that he comes to this material world to perform activities. It is stated in Vedas that the Supreme Lord has nothing to do. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna also says that Name Parthasti Kartavyam Trishu Lokeshu Kinchana Nanavaptam Avaptavyam Varta eva cha karmani. O son of Pritha, there is no work prescribed for me within these three planetary systems, nor I am in want of anything, nor I need to obtain anything, and yet I am engaged in these prescribed duties. Lord Krishna has to do nothing with this material world, and so is the Jiva actually. We just take this body as our own self, and everything, all these designations come in connection to that. But when we understand our eternal nature, when we understand we are the souls, we are not the body, we are eternal beings, we are not this, don't have to go through this temporary end of the body, taking birth again, and doing all that. If we understand, just by understanding that our eternal position, we don't have to be here. Okay, so we'll continue reading 2, 3 more paragraphs. Let's see who would like to read a little more, one more paragraph. Jyotsna, okay. Govinda, you would like to read?
Which paragraph?
So we are here. We should therefore not think that Krishna is...
We should therefore not think that Krishna is referred to descend upon this material world and energy in so many activities. No one is equal to than Krishna, and he has all knowledge naturally. It is not that he has undergo penances to acquire knowledge, or that he at any time he has a perfect knowledge to attach knowledge at all times, and in the condition he is full of knowledge. He may be speak the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, but at no time was he ever taught the Bhagavad Gita on who can understand that this is Krishna person does not have to return to the cycle of birth and death in the material world, begin under the influence of illusion. We spent our lifetimes trying to make advance to the material utmost sphere. But this is not the purpose of human life. Human life is meant of understanding the science of Krishna.
Yes, thank you, Govinda. Okay.
When the class will end?
Class will end at 8 in another 10 minutes. Okay, so we'll continue. We'll try to finish. We just have 3 more paragraphs, and then we'll talk about these 3 paragraphs. Let's see who would like to read. Who would like to read? Can you raise your hands? Jyotsna, you want to read? Okay, I will read. I'll continue reading. Our material needs are these: the problem of eating, mating, sleeping, of defending ourselves, and acquiring the sense gratification. Neeb, would you like to read? You just raised your hand. Yes, go ahead. So we are here. These are common both to human beings and to animals.
These are common both to human beings and animals, and to animals.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead. We'll read the whole paragraph.
The animals are
busily engaged
and trying to solve these problems. And if we are only engaged in solving them, how are we any different from the animals? The human being, however, was a special qualification whereby we can develop transcendental Krishna consciousness. But if he does not avail himself, he is an animal category. The defect of modern civilization is that it puts too much stress on solving these survival problems. As spiritual living beings is incumbent upon us to extricate ourselves from this arrangement of birth and death. We should therefore be careful not to miss the special opportunity of human life. Sri Krishna himself comes to deliver the Bhagavad Gita and helps us become God conscious. Indeed, this is very material creation given up to us for utilize this cultivation. But if after receiving chance and gift of human life, we do not utilize to develop Krishna consciousness, we shall be missing this rare opportunity. The process of cultivation is very simple.
Shravanam Kirtanam.
Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing and chanting, we have nothing to do with other than listen. And by listening carefully, enlightenment is sure to come. Krishna will surely help. For he is seated within. We only have to make the effort and spare a little time. We will not need anyone to ask us whether we are making progress. We will know it automatically. Just as a hungry Max knows that he has been satisfied by a full meal. Actually,
yes, that's it. Thanks. Thank you, Neeb. So we'll talk about this a little bit and then we'll continue. So here in this paragraph, what Prabhupada is explaining is that we are just busy in what? 4 things. What are those? Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, right? We eat, we sleep, and then, we have the families and they expand, and then we just take care of those families, right? The whole life goes by like that. And What are we trying to gain happiness? Through the senses. And that's how the whole life is passed by. But aren't these things, even animals, doing the same things? So how are we different from them? We are also busy in solving these survival problems, right? If we don't do this, we won't survive, right? So these survival requirements, we are just trying to do that, and animals also try to do that. How are we different from them? So this is a very rare opportunity to develop our consciousness by hearing and chanting. And Prabhupada is saying that just by hearing, listening, we don't have to do anything else. We just have to listen and chant, spare some time. And if you slowly, gradually, this hearing and chanting will purify our hearts, and we'll develop that eternal bond to Lord Krishna. Okay, so we'll be quick with this last two paragraphs. Actually, this process of Krishna consciousness or self-realization is not very difficult. Krishna taught it to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. And if we understand Bhagavad Gita just as Arjuna did, we will have no problem in coming to the perfectional state. But if we try to interpret the Bhagavad Gita according to our own mundane academic mentality, we will spoil it all. As stated before, this chanting of Hare Krishna is a process by which all contamination due to the material association are removed from the mirror of the mind. There is no need for external help in reviving our Krishna consciousness. For Krishna consciousness is dormant within the self. What does that mean by it is dormant within the self? It is already there. We have just forgotten that. So it is just reviving it back. In fact, it is the very quality of the self. We have only to invoke it by this process. Krishna consciousness is an eternal fact. It is not a doctrine or set of a belief imposed by some organization. It is within all living entities, whether they be human beings or animals. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was passing through the jungle of South India, some 500 years ago, he chanted Hare Krishna, and all the animals, the tigers, elephants, deers, joined him in the dance to the holy name. Of course, this depends on the purity of the chanting. As we progress in chanting, purification is sure to come. And what happens with that pure hearts? When we establish that connection and we have the pure hearts, do we have to come back in this material world? No, right? Okay.
Kasla, and now?
Yeah, so we will end, but before that, we will go around and see if there is any question or anybody would like to share anything. Anybody would like to share anything or any questions? Yes, Jyotsna, you have your hand up.
Is it okay just to chant 1 or 2 rounds in the morning if we have to get up early?
Yes, it is. In fact, if you do that, Jyotsna, your day, you will see your day will go by so nice. You'll have so nice consciousness. You will be more active, not just, a physically activeness, but your state of mind will be very, very different. If we chant just at least 1 round in the morning, if we can do a little more, even better.
In the morning, I chant 5 rounds.
Very nice.
After school, I chant 4 rounds.
Very nice. So I'm assuming all of you must be chanting at least some rounds, huh? All of you. Because that's the only way. What did Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has told us? Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama Eva Kevalam. Kalau Nasteva, 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 Gati Anyata. There is no other way, no other way, no other way. We have to chant our rounds. We have to, whenever you can do, morning is the best time. And, if we can do some in the evening, some in the morning, that's good too. But we have to chant certain number of rounds and we have to chant fixed number of rounds. So if we try to commit to some number of rounds, like say if you were doing like 2 or 4 or, a little more, but make sure that you finish those numbers of rounds every day. And then slowly, gradually, you pick up to 16 rounds. And if you do that, over the time we get initiated, and that connection, to Lord Krishna, surrender to Lord Krishna, just changes everything for us. We are gradually then put back on the way back to Godhead. So see, can other living beings do that? Like, all of these animals, can they do that? No, it is very rare opportunity, and we are so fortunate that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has made it so simple for us. And Prabhupada took all that hard work to bring us to the West. Otherwise, we would be doing all other things by now, right? Okay, Manhar, you have anything to add or you have a question?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So some people write a Bhagavad Gita not as it is like some other Bhagavad Gita. So why do they do that?
Yeah. See, Prabhupada explained, right? We just read that. It has to be taken as it is. If we manipulate it, the reason why the people manipulate in so many different, because they have their own personal gains out of it. Like maybe they want to become a little more famous, they want to become, make money out of it, and they see that this is as an avenue to do that. So if there is that personal gain, that is the only reason why, it would be adulterated. But if we take it as it is, then even if there is no personal gain, there is nothing to attain of the material nature. What do we attain in that case? We attain Lord Krishna. We attain the spiritual, our own real self. So who is at the benefit? To adulterate, maybe they change and they make all these different agendas, and are they actually ultimately going to be benefiting from that? No. But if we take the teachings as it is, then we ultimately will get purified and will reestablish that connection to Lord Krishna. Okay. Anything more? Any questions or anything else?
Thank you, Mataji.
Yeah. Okay, so we will end here, and we will all see you next week, and we'll continue from chapter 3. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna.
Krishna Hare
Hare
Hare, Hare
Ram,
Ram,
Hare Ram,
Vacha Kalpatarubhyascha
Tatarubhyascha Vasindhuvevacha Patetanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Thank you. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna, Hare Bol.
Thank you,
Jai
Mataji.
Mataji ki jai.
No, Hare Krishna.